Welcome to a series of podcasts from Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Adoption. And welcome, hopefully, to the start of your adoption journey. My name's Daniel Fox, and in these episodes, we're exploring the different types of adoption, answering a lot of questions that you have, and hopefully reassuring you just a little bit too. In this episode, we're discussing sibling adoption. And what better way to do that than to spend some time with people who've been there, are doing it, and have the t-shirts. We're joined by same-sex couple Jason and Ian.
Him starting school, I always remember that he came home and he was so happy because he felt like a normal child.
I mean, finding sense of humour is a great thing as well.
And Charlotte as well.
And in that moment, a lot of people would be like, shh, but we laughed it off. He knows that's what he did, and he knows that is what he remembers.
First of all, I asked Ian and Jason, a same-sex couple, how they came to adopt.
It just sort of happened really for us.
It started off as a conversation about what if we went down that route, and it sort of evolved, didn't it?
Yeah, and we went to a taster day at Cambridge. And sort of see how was said and what we'd have to do, and we went from there. Really, took us about 2 years, I think.
And what they remember about their first adoption meetings.
Stressful, a little bit. Trying to think of what to say and how it would impact our lives going forward, and how we would try and change things, and what it would bring to the family. Really, so yeah.
I asked Jason about adopting siblings and whether it was jumping in at the deep end or actually forward planning.
We didn't know what to expect, and after talking through ourselves about that, would it be easier to have two children and throw ourselves in at the deep end rather than one and then have to go through the whole process again? We thought it would probably be easier for us just to jump in the deep end and put ourselves forward to adopt siblings. And after that 2 year period, it eventually happened.
Our other contributor is Charlotte, and she told me her adoption story.
So, me and my other half, we knew early on that we wouldn't have biological children. And we also knew that IVF was not for us because we would have probably been divorced. But with adoption, we thought that you have elements of control. You can continue to read, you can continue to research, continue to educate about how you might parent in the future. So we decided, that's it. We'll go for it. And we went to an open evening 1 July, and that was it. We started the process straight away. For us, we knew that we've both grown up with siblings. And although sometimes we get on really well with our siblings, other times we don't, but we knew that we always wanted to give the children the option to stay together. We always wanted to be that person that life's a bit manic, but we get there in the end. So that's what we did. We set our goals, and we wanted 2 children, ideally between 2 and 4. We weren't personally bothered about a baby at that point because we knew that they'd be easily to be adopted. So we, at that point, went straight in, 2 to 4 year olds, and actually come across our children during the process, during the stage 2. So we've been very fortunate.
We always thought if you have 2, we went in with it open-minded. We didn't mind, but we thought if we've always got 2, you've always got that other the other child's always got a support. We've grown up with siblings, and they've always been through it, so they can always talk to the older brother or younger brother or sister or whatever. So they've always got someone else there to be with them, a whole process of going forward. So that's why I think we decided to have 2.
So what is it like adopting siblings? Well, here's Charlotte once more.
So it's always been full on from the get-go, because although ours are only 14 months apart, the oldest 2, they've always had each other. So sometimes they're each other's best friend, other times they are just bickering, and it's keep them apart. But that is what we would say is standard sibling. And then recently we've actually brought home our 3rd child, and that changes the dynamic completely, because when the baby's around, they are just the best big brother, best big sister they can be 99% of the time. So for us, they've got each other, they can share stories, but they can also grow up knowing that they're not the only one that's been in their shoes. So hopefully they'll grow up happy with each other.
Something I wanted to tackle was the reality of adopting children. Now, our adopters here all have sibling groups that they've adopted, but that's just the start of the journey. How do you explain to your children, well, how they came to be?
We've had this conversation with our children several times, and it will come out of the blue. You can be driving down the road, walking around a shop, and you'll suddenly get a question. And we have found that honesty is the best policy with them, and don't try and make it something that it's clearly not. We're obviously a same-sex couple, so it doesn't take a lot to work out that there's a mother involved somewhere along that process. So we've been honest with them, and we've explained things as honestly as you can with children of that age. It hasn't been easy. It's been difficult for us. It's tested us at times, all the way through this process, really. But yeah, certainly being very honest with them.
And what are some of the questions that children are likely to ask? Here's Ian.
Where's my mum? And it's like, well, you can keep saying, I don't know, I can't put something in my mouth to make it better for him or for them. It's very hard to explain. It's like, I can't explain what's happened.
We've had the I hate my mum, and we've had to explain it's not necessarily her fault. Circumstances in life have led us to this point, so we've had to try and deal with that in a very sensitive manner, because we don't want the children growing up hating their former life before they came to us. We've tried to explain that it was for their good, and I think the day that we went to court with the children, with our eldest, that started to sink in that it was they weren't going anywhere else.
That was the thing for our eldest, is that he always thought he was going to be moving on. He only had one foster carer, but he always thought he was going to be leaving us, and it took about 3 years to think that we are staying here. We're not going anywhere else. That was the biggest, hardest thing as well for our eldest. And
really, just trying to get that infant nurture sort of boundary from even calling us, dad and dads, to our grandparents, because they didn't really understand what the concept of a grandparent was, or one of our sisters or brothers. It was difficult to try and get some kind of emotion from our youngest, because he was quite a cold child. That's taken a long while for him to
warm up a little bit.
Yeah, it's taken him a while, and I think it's come through now. I think we've come through the other side of that.
Listening to Ian and Jason talk, it's quite clear that their two children came to them in different places, at different stages. And this was something that Charlotte recognised in her children as well.
Absolutely. I think we've always approached life story work with empathy. And we try and educate the children that sometimes people are physically unwell, sometimes they're mentally unwell. And I think what I've always thought, as I've brought them up, is that I want them to grow up as children and as young people that are confident in who they are, confident in their identity. And I think by doing that, you have to be honest. So you have to have these difficult conversations with your children from a really early point. And our children very much will just ask questions out of the blue, and it leaves you speechless. But you think, as a parent, you can't allow yourself to be speechless, because you are dealing with their life, and you're dealing with situations that have happened to them. I mean, my oldest will always start by asking whether his birth mum is dead. And that will be a very to the point, I want to know what she's doing, where she is, why she's there. And that's what he thinks. And we will always approach that with empathy and say, well, she isn't, but we believe she's doing this right now, we believe she's doing that, or we actually don't know. But they both, all three of them, have had obviously very different experiences. Our youngest come to us at 7 months, so she at the minute doesn't actually know. But because the older two know that she is their biological sibling, that again has brought up a lot of emotions from them about actually why has she gone on to have another child when she can't look after them. And that from a 5-year-old as a parent is really tricky to hear. But also you think, how long has she been thinking about that and processing that for that to be verbally expressed? So we do struggle, and we often take a bit of downtime. So if we have had tricky stories or tricky situations, we do take downtime. We go out and do something really fun. We go out and make ourselves feel better sometimes, but actually we go and do what they want to do. And in that moment when they're feeling so uneasy, they need to feel loved, and they need to feel confident, and they need to feel loved as to who they are. So we'll go and do their favourite things and try and patch it up a little bit.
So one thing you'll hear a lot about through your adoption journey is therapeutic parenting. It's a parenting style which is empathetic and consistent, but with really firm boundaries. It's a style that Charlotte and her partner have adopted in their home.
So I think for us, going through the process, I mean, I've worked in childcare like my whole working career. So you start to read about therapeutic parenting, and obviously you go to your training sessions and everyone's going, therapeutic parent. You're like, well, what is this? So we really read into it, and we listened to podcasts, and we took on all the advice from social workers. And we thought, right, how are we going to therapeutic parent? How are we going to ensure that the children have connection before you're trying to correct their behaviour? So for us, we pace parent majorly. So we will always try and be playful in how we approach behaviour. And yes, to outsiders, that will look like we're not telling our children off. But actually, in that moment, do the children need telling off, or do they need to feel loved? Do they need to feel respected? Do they need to feel that you're coming at them with empathy? Because sometimes when we're dysregulated, we can't make an appropriate right choice. So for us, we will always step back and look at behaviour. What is that behaviour communicating? So I think the therapeutic parenting for us is a part of everyday life. It's something I've had to get my head around, is that because we're therapeutic within our home, and grandparents will come in occasionally and they might pick up parts of therapeutic parenting, but it doesn't mean that when your children step outside that door into school or into playgroup or into friends' homes, it doesn't mean that they're going to be therapeutic parented there or necessarily respected in the way that we would respect them if behaviour was occurring. So one thing with the paced parenting is making sure that we're advocating that the people that are caring for our children, as in school or as in our close friends, have a real good understanding of how we therapeutic parent and a couple of the strategies that we use, that if their behaviour is dysregulating, we can bring them back round quite quickly. And then for us, we'll always reflect on the behaviour later. And we find that with the reflection at the minute, they possibly aren't that engaged in it, but we know that actually deep down they will take it in eventually. And that they don't choose. No child chooses to hit out. No child chooses to bite or to swear or to hit or to kick. But sometimes they don't have the control of how they're feeling. So it's our job as their parents to sort of educate them on emotions and educate them on how to deal with those big feelings when they occur, but also to continue to advocate every day that their behaviour is looked at school. And that is, for us, that's a big thing, school. Because if they're not regulated in school, you're going to deal with constant behaviour at home. And when you're facing children that have got possibly insecure attachments, or you don't want to come home from school where they found it really tricky and being negative. So for us, we will just prioritise the connection constantly. And that might look like, for us, one of our go-to is potions. So if they're dysregulating, particularly if we're one parent with 2 children at the time, say, it'll be like, let's go be patients, let's go in the bath. And by giving them the water and the endless bottles of shampoo and conditioner, they'll be playing, they'll be getting their sensory fix, but also they'll be calming down internally, which means that when their bath is over, they're going to be calmer and you're going to be on more of a level-headed to talk to them. So for us, it's definitely connection before correction with regards to behaviour.
We've kind of found getting down to the level talking has worked. We don't have any major behavioural issues, which I think we're very lucky. It's the usual sibling squabbles about who's got the TV remote and all that sort of stuff. But when it comes to anger and bits and pieces, our youngest is going through at the moment where you have to we kind of reward good behaviour, and if there's a particular activity that he likes to do, if he continues doing it, he'll miss that activity. And normally just the threat of not going is enough to bring him round.
Yeah.
So and that does work. It's been testing. It pushes buttons.
It's really hard, isn't
but,
it?
We find it works.
We've talked a lot about the challenges of adopting so far in this episode, so I wanted to get back to the positives. And I asked Ian, first of all, about the most joyful moments that he's experienced.
Probably one of our eldest, when he started school, because he was 3 when we got him, and then 2 weeks later he was 4. So he then started school in September. Him starting school, I always remember that he came home and he was so happy because he felt like a normal child. And then walking down the street with going to school, and one of his friends shouted out, "That's and his dad's." And he was so happy that he had 2 dads. He didn't care. There was no...
He was broadcasting the fact, and in fact, to some of the boys at his school,
It was quite envious that they had 2 dads.
From that first cuddle in the morning to the last one at night, and feeling that they've taken to us. I mean, in some respect, they've adopted us. You know, that's how it kind of feels at times.
It doesn't feel like we've adopted them. They have adopted us. They've completely changed our life.
Whether it was normal, right or not, I don't know. But we didn't actually clamp eyes on the boys until about a week before we picked them up. So it was very, very difficult for us because we didn't know whether there was going to be that emotional attachment there, and it was a real. There was a bit of a dodgy photograph in one of the profiles, and you couldn't see anything from that. It was literally a week and a half before we
saw them.
Yeah. Before
you met them, you saw their photos.
So it was, and it worked out exceptionally well.
I think every day is whatever they do. I know they sometimes can be completely one scale to the other scale, but it's every day. I think is rewarding for. At the end of the day, it's like that. That's made a difference. I feel for us anyway.
And here's Jason talking about one of his favourite things.
I mean, finding sense of humour is a great thing as well. Both of them do have very good, strong sense of humours. And it's getting quite adult, so we have to be. And especially as they're going through various school stages and they're sort of discussing human biology and bits and pieces, and we have some very entertaining sort of conversations around the dinner table.
But comes up though, doesn't it? Like the nature versus nurture, because although we're not obviously biologically related to our children, my son is literally the mimic of his dad. Like the personality, the humour. He comes out with like one-liners, and people are like, "That is your dad talking." Like. What is that?
We've realised that our youngest is very stubborn, and it takes after Jason, I think.
Something you might be worried about is how you broach the subject of the past. Should you just wait for the questions to come and then pick them off one by one, or should you take a proactive approach? Well, here's Charlotte's take.
So we're proactive in the effect of we will celebrate specific days. So we'll always celebrate our family birthday, which is the year to the date that they come home on. And that to them, it probably is an extra day for a couple of presents, I'm not going to lie. But part of their present is that they get a family photo book of everything they've done that year. So it takes absolutely hours, but I create these books in the hope that one day this is going to give their birth family a snapshot into their childhood. So we will celebrate that, and that will always initiate some conversation. And then we have their life story books accessible. And when we were younger, we had sort of the toy box life story books, but now they just want to look at their life story books. We come at it with, we try and come at it with confidence, and our eldest will often say to people that he's got a birth mum and a birth dad, and he'll often talk about foster carers, and we come at it with confidence in the fact that we don't shut the conversation off. So we could be on a train and he saw a pot noodle. So he shouts to the person with the pot noodle, I used to have them when I lived with my birth mum. And in that moment, a lot of people would be like, shh. But we laughed it off. He knows that's what he did. And he knows that is what he remembers from living with them. So we allow them to initiate conversations whenever they want. We will sometimes say to them that obviously if they've got additional needs based on some of the choices that their birth parents made, and we might link that into it and say, well, actually, we might, if you drink alcohol, that can affect you long term. And so that will link in with that. But they want to know. They want to know why they're sometimes behaving a bit differently to their friends. They want to know why they need somebody to sit with them in school. So I think for us, it's honesty is the best policy. And we've got 14 months between the eldest two, and then we've got 5 years with the lowest. And we'll often have maybe an older age conversation with our eldest, but we'll do that in front of our middle child because A, she will always want to be involved, and B, she will continue to question it until she gains an understanding. So even when we think the conversations are big, she'll find a way of working that to a level that she can comprehend and cope with. So it's not an easy part of bringing up children and educating them about their life story, but you have to do it to give them their identity and to help build them, because at the end of the day, without birth parents, we wouldn't have our families and they wouldn't be who they were.
And here's Ian.
It took probably about a year, 18 months for them to start asking questions. Why are we with you? Why are we here? And what happened previously? And then you start getting little bits about remembering. It was like, okay, you wouldn't have thought a 3-year-old would remember being taken away in a police car and at the dinner table. It's like, well, okay, how can we, being honest, okay, you just could take that in and then try to deal with it yourself and then give some sort of answer back, like a reassuring answer?
We felt from a very early stage that our eldest was more of a carer to his brother. That came very clear.
It's still clear now. It's still he wants to do everything for him, and it's like, we are here. You don't have to worry about.
Take away that you're not the parent here. Let us have a crack at this. And it was difficult for a little while to try and let him release the grip of out. He literally wouldn't let him out of his sight.
I think that's really key. And I very much remember when our two first come home, Ivy gave Oakley her shoes to put on. And he would have done this in foster care, he was doing this. And he looked at her and said, no, I don't need to do that now. Mummy and Daddy are here to help you. And that, to his brain, was almost like, Mummy and Daddy can do it. I don't need to do it. And I'm actually confident that Mummy and Daddy can help you and Mummy and Daddy are there for you. So it does still happen, but it
happens on a fairly day. As we said before, 1 minute they love each other, next minute they're locking horns. You have to, as they grow up, they are asking different questions. As I said, our youngest didn't know anything at all, but the eldest did. He had a memory. So it's been slightly easier for us in that sense that we haven't had, massive, difficult questions at this stage. They will come in time. I'm fairly sure of that.
We've always been honest with our eldest, but with the youngest, we found trying to break it down so he can understand it. So it's more child safety for him than the older one, because he probably remembers more. And then we also had we had 2 cats, and they said. So that's like we adopted the cats, and they said it's like Tango and Pebbles. It was like, yeah, but it's in a different form, and we've done this because we didn't want you to be left in to care and to be we want to give you a loving home. For a while it was a case of the youngest thought that his foster carer was his birth mother, his mum, and he still thinks that now. That's his thought is his foster carer is his mum, and then our eldest gets very angry to say it's not. He
totally gets it. He understands the reasons why, and we've explained the as much as we possibly can, because we didn't actually know too much. We weren't told an awful lot.
I don't think you ever are, right?
So it was a case of try and see, and luckily for us, it's worked out all right. I'm sure other cases and other families haven't had such an easy ride, but at this moment in time, we've had it pretty good.
Next time, we're back with Ian, Jason and Charlotte once more, and we'll be talking about the importance of sibling adoption.
We could never imagine ourselves being split up from our siblings, so why would we ever want to envisage our children being split up from their siblings? I mean, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do, but the best thing you'll ever do.
I'll catch you next time.